Hello, everyone. Welcome. Today, we are unveiling the anticipated exit workflows. Now, in today's fast-paced office environment, trying to manage and automate all the repetitive processes, systems, trainings, and best practices can feel like a never-ending task. And we've solved this with our exit workflows. Workflows take inefficiencies head-on, providing a consistent approach to operations and giving every associate a shot at success, which is one of my favorite aspects of our exit workflows. But you get a flexible automated system. You can track, you can manage multi-step processes, whether it's handling tasks, leads, listings, or agent development. And this solution streamlines everything, laying out a clear path to follow, minimizing manual work, and freeing up agents to focus on the activities that really matter. Plus, workflows adapt to your office's unique needs while offering the oversight brokers need for smooth day-to-day operations. Now, the result is increased productivity, better accountability, and a seamless approach that ensures consistency across the board. Now, this session positively impacts everyone, those in ownership, management and administrative roles, sales representatives, and I would even say consumers, because at the end result, the consumer is going to get a highly trained real estate agent in the practice of real estate sales, which is so good. Now, today we're welcoming one of our highly respected humans, Derek Stephenson, who's been with Exit for over 19 years. Derek, what are you most excited about when it comes to workflows? Is it finally launching it and putting it into the hands of everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to see it come to life for sure. I know it's been a work in progress, and I can't wait to see what the offices are able to do with it.
Yes, so there are so many people involved making this effort come to fruition, and we're glad to have you, Derek, to do a deep dive into our exit workflows. Now, let's take a look at what our audience can expect from us today. On the management side, we're going to cover a full tour. We want to show you the exit workflows. We're also going to do an overview of where to create a workflow. We're going to talk about assigning and automating, and then also monitoring progress. But there's also an associate side that we're going to cover today. We're going to cover notifications, where to watch for those. We're going to talk about working through workflows, assigning action steps to other members on your team, and also monitoring progress. Now, let's get through some terminology. There's just a few things that maybe might be new to our audience. So workflows, what is that? It's the standardized steps to follow for a given agent. Maybe it's about a listing, how to manage a lead. Assign means the act of making workflows available to users individually or by role, making the steps visible in their action items. And then we've got action items, which are workflow steps communicated to associates. And then trigger, that's probably a new terminology for you. It's an event that we detect, like a new listing, a new associate, a new lead. And then automate, that's where the magic really happens. The intent is not for users to become masters of the workflow screens, but it is to set it and forget it. So you take a trigger, you connect it to a workflow, and when new events happen that match the trigger, the workflow will automatically be deployed. Now, this is the anticipated moment, Derek, where we're going to go ahead and live drive. So I'm going to go ahead and give you controls so we can show your screen and we can get to work. All right, my friend, go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. Can you see my screen okay?
Looks great.
Perfect. So what I'm going to start off with here is showing the franchisee side, or the management side. This is something that administrators and brokers would have access to as well. And then we'll eventually switch over to the sales associate side. So right now I'm currently signed into our test environment as a franchisee. And of course, to access our workflows, we're simply going to click the new icon up in the top toolbar here, introducing our workflows. And the first step for franchisees or management staff is to actually kind of request early access to the workflows in order for all the associates to be able to see or have access to that icon in the top toolbar. The franchisee does have to go ahead and request the access. Once that's done, we can kind of close that window. We'll automatically click back into our icon up in the top right, and we're automatically going to land on our workflow dashboard. So this view that we're currently taking a look at right now is actually going to be the same for everyone, no matter what your role is. Everyone is automatically going to land on this workflow dashboard, the active tab. And of course, because this is brand new for everyone, the active tab is actually going to be blank until the franchisee, office manager, broker of record, office administrator starts actually assigning workflows to their associates. Before we get started with assigning the workflows, there's a couple other tabs I'd like to highlight. And across the top here, you'll see that we have My Workflows, our Library, and then, of course, our Automate tab. I'm going to click into the Library first, because this is kind of where a catalog of all of the workflows that corporate has created is actually going to live. Now, this library is only available for management roles. Again, that's going to include franchisees, brokers, and administrators with that Fran Super role. So over the last little while, corporate has communicated and we have come up with a number of different workflows. As you can see here, we have everything from agent branding, sponsoring, a couple pending checklists. So whether it's listing related or deal related, there's a couple there that of course we can assign to properties as well. We have agent onboarding, lead follow-up, all kinds of different workflows that corporate has created. But that doesn't mean that you're not able to create your own or even edit or modify the ones that we already have set up. So first things first, up in the top right, we do have a create workflow icon, which we will peek at in just a minute. But you'll notice that we have our titles, as I mentioned, down below on the left-hand side, and you can see that there's a number of different steps attached to various workflows. So if I wanted to see all 20 steps with our agent branding and marketing workflow, I simply click onto the tab or the title of it, and I can scroll through all the different steps and of course read the information. As far as the agent branding and marketing workflow goes, maybe this is something that you already kind of have set up in your brokerage. Perhaps you have a binder, for example, that you give to new associates when it comes to agent branding and marketing, or even as we scroll down, you have lead follow-up, anything that you would typically provide for associates when they join your brokerage, and of course as refreshers, maybe annually, semi-annually, depending on kind of how their production is going. But we know that some of these binders or emails get lost. They're sitting on bookshelves, just collecting some dust in the office, and therefore they're not necessarily being put to use. So if you have something like that, you can actually go ahead and modify it for your own brokerage. With the workflows that we have, maybe those 20 steps you want to go ahead and update and change a little bit. Maybe your current agent branding and marketing process or manual within the brokerage has 30 steps and you just want to go ahead and add to it. So over on the far right-hand side, underneath our actions column, franchisees are going to be able to go ahead and duplicate a workflow. So if I just hold my cursor over the three icons on the far right-hand side, I can go ahead and click on to duplicate, and it's going to automatically open up my workflow, and you'll see that it says copy to attached to it. Now, again, this is not something that I've had to go ahead and create. This is done by corporate. So we already have a description here. We already have our category. So I'm going to click down to steps over on the top left-hand side here. And you can see that we have all 20 steps listed on the far right-hand side. If I wanted to go ahead and add, remember, if I wanted to add my 10 remaining steps, my brokerage has 30. We only have 20 in the workflow. I could go ahead and start off with a step title. I'd add in our title, our description, whether or not our step is mandatory or not, and I can even include a time interval. So if I wanted to go ahead and say we needed to wait 1 day between the 20th step before we complete our 21st step, I could go ahead and indicate that here with our drop-down menu. We can also link an RC page, a document that lives in the resource center, and even a link, for example, a YouTube link. And we'll get to that in just a minute. Once we add the step, it's automatically going to appear on the right-hand side, and you'll notice that I don't have to keep them in the same order. I can simply go ahead and drag and drop these workflows into, or different steps, excuse me, into a different order of flow that I'd like to see the associates complete. So it's not set in stone. I can go ahead and move those around. If I wanted to edit the current step, I'm free to do so as well, using, of course, the edit icon on the right-hand side, and I can go ahead and edit that step. Now, you'll notice as I say finish steps, we're going to go ahead and save this new workflow. Once it's saved, as I scroll down to the bottom of my list, it's automatically going to save underneath the library, and you can see here now it was created by the franchisee. Other workflows were created by corporate, but of course, once they're created by yourselves or the broker or the administrator, it's automatically going to be added to your library, and it's going to let us know who's actually created, or in this case, duplicated that workflow. So that's one way that we can personalize the workflows that corporate has set up. The other option, as I mentioned, is to create a new workflow. So if I click onto that create workflow icon up in the top right-hand corner, I'm just going to create a quick one here so we're not taking up too much time. But this is going to be our 7 steps to tech heaven. So we know that that document is a live document on the Resource Center. And so I'm just going to go ahead and add in a couple steps here. 7 steps to tech heaven, let's say. And our description, let's say, follow these 7 quick steps and watch how easy it is to personalize and engage with Exits Tech. Let's start with that. So in our drop-down menu for our category, we're going to go ahead and indicate that it's for our associates, and it's going to be related to tech onboarding. We can go ahead and select next. So first step is going to be our public profile. So we want them to go ahead and complete their public profile when new associates join. Let's say, don't be a secret agent. Personalize your public profile and have an online presence with Exit. We'll keep it short and sweet. So again, we can indicate whether or not the step is mandatory or not, and again, select a time interval. So this is the first step. I'm not going to worry about selecting a time interval here. And remember, the idea behind this is so that when an associate joins your brokerage, you're able to go ahead and assign this workflow to them, and it's going to instruct them how to go ahead and update or personalize their public profile.
You know, Derek, real quick before you go to the link type, where it says mandatory step, explain a little bit about the difference between mandatory, whether it's yes or no.
Yeah, for sure. So we can indicate whether or not we're going to require the associate to go ahead and complete that step. In this particular situation, again, it's up to you on whether or not you want to make that step mandatory. In this situation, I always revert back to a situation where if an exit associate is, let's say, moving across the state and or country even, and they're going to be leaving one exit office and reinstating into another exit office, they probably already have a public profile set up and attached to them, so it might not be a step that you'd want to make mandatory. But if you do choose to make it mandatory, the office administrator can also go in and actually mark that step as completed for the associate. So if you do find yourself in a situation where you have an agent moving from one brokerage to another, the office admin can go ahead and complete that step, and the associate doesn't have to be required to go ahead and complete that step of the workflow.
It's perfect, because truly the agent can't go to the next step unless they finish that required step.
Yeah, they'll be able to go ahead and complete it or skip it even, but yes, you're correct. They would have to go ahead and actually complete this step in order for the workflow to be officially completed.
Thanks, Derek. Appreciate that.
No problem. So with our public profile, we know that that actually lives in the Resource Center. So if I select the RC page here, I can go ahead and select Profile from the first drop-down menu. I can click the second drop-down menu, and I can go ahead and select my public profile. If I say Add, you'll see that the step 1 is automatically populated on the right-hand side. And then we would go ahead and move to the second step. So let's say, for example, let's get social. Add social media links to your website, your mobile business card, and exit, we'll say exitrealty.com. Again, we can indicate whether or not the step is mandatory. If there's a time interval, we'll say 1 day, for example. Again, we'll go ahead and choose the resource center page here. And again, it's underneath our profile and our public profile, so we can add social media links. Again, we can go ahead and say add, and you'll see the steps that populate here on the right-hand side. I won't worry about, again, completing too many steps here, but I will mention that with the document section of the Resource Center, if you're choosing to actually attach a document, you could go ahead and click that drop-down menu. Now, again, I'm in a test environment, so it could look a little different on your side there, but you're able to go ahead and choose a document, whether it is your office documents, if it's attached to a media section. But in order for the document to appear or be attached as an option in a workflow, remember that you actually first have to add the document to the Resource Center within the Documents tab, and then also have it available on the My Office portal, and that's when they'll also officially be linked here in the workflow. The other option is if it's not a document that you necessarily want to share on the workflow, on the Office portal, you could still upload the document to the Resource Center, copy the link, and then simply use the link URL and just paste in that link. And then when you say add, it would do the same thing. It would direct the associate to that particular document rather than linking the document. So I'm just going to go ahead and say finish. I know we only have 2 steps out of our 7, but I'm going to say finish so we can go ahead and move on. We'll save our workflow.
It's pretty efficient. 2 steps for 7 steps for tech heaven.
And again, once we come back into our library, as we scroll down, we'll see that we now have that new workflow available in the library.
So easy.
So as you can see, we also happen to have a category column that I've kind of skipped over, and you'll notice that we have associate workflows and property workflows. And so the one that I just created as a course for our associates, because it's related to new agent tech onboarding essentially, but we do have property workflows as well that we are going to get into. Before we highlight the property workflows, I do want to address our columns over on the right-hand side here as well. So of course, the big part of the workflows is the ability to actually assign those steps or workflow to the associates. So first up, we have manage. So manage is almost like if you want to, let's say I'm a franchisee and I want to go ahead and create a workflow, and then I want to be able to let other administrators or management roles within the brokerage to have access to that workflow as well within their library. So if I come down to that one I just created, I could go ahead and click on to manage. I could go ahead and I can assign it by associate role. So that of course it's just going to give me a list of the associates within the brokerage, or I could just do by role itself. Role is a little bit different, it's more wide based. So if I were to give access to, let's say, all Fran Supers, or the Fran Super role, I have to be mindful that it's all Fran Supers within the brokerage, not just an individual Fran Super. So I could go ahead and, as I mentioned, go ahead and check off Fran Super. If I want to select give access, now all Fran Supers would have access to that workflow. If I accidentally selected the wrong role, I just go ahead and click onto the role down below. You can see it disappears, and I can go in and give, again, manage access for a different role. Our assign column is going to allow us to assign a workflow to our associates. So we click on to assign. Again, I'm going to go ahead and choose my franchise first. We're back to the same situation where I can do role versus agent. We can only do one or the other. You'll notice if I do associate broker, our agent becomes grayed out, or the name column becomes grayed out. So I'm going to say assign. I'm going to go ahead and add it back into our sales reps as well as our broker or record, just so we have lots of stuff to look at here. So we'll say assign. So again, we have our 3 different roles down below. Again, remember, you can always delete it using the little trash can on the right-hand side if we need to. So now if we minimize or close out of our assign option there, you'll see back underneath the My Workflows, I've actually assigned this workflow to the associates now. So as the franchisee or office manager, I now have information to look at underneath my active tab. These are now all active workflows for all those roles, the associate broker, broker of record, and the sales reps within this franchise. As a franchisee, remember, or office manager, I can go ahead and expand the workflow. So I can even see what steps have been completed on the associate side. When you assign a workflow to an associate, it's also going to trigger an action item on the Resource Center for the associate, and we'll switch over and take a peek at that in just a minute. So agents are going to be notified, of course, through the Resource Center and the Exit Realty Connect app. But management roles, again, can come in and see which steps have been completed within that particular workflow. You'll notice that over here we have a progress bar across the top as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and complete a couple just so we can see it populate. So as the associate, we'll say, is going ahead and completing these steps, you'll notice that the progress bar is automatically being populated as well. If I wanted to go ahead and skip a step, you'll notice it's a different color, and then I'll come down, complete a couple more, just so we have some more information to look at. And you can see that that progress bar is automatically going to populate based off the steps or the actions that the associate has taken. Now, even though this particular workflow is attached to Aaron, the associate, because I'm currently signed in as the franchisee and I'm completing those steps on behalf of the associate, you'll notice that the assignee is actually Jim, the franchisee, and not Aaron. When we sign into the Resource Center as Aaron or as any associate, you would notice that the assignee or the image is actually going to be the associate that completed the workflow, not the franchisee. So that's how we actually create our workflows and how we assign them. If we come back into our library here, before we switch back over to our associate view, of course, our big thing here is the automate option. So we have the automate column over on the right-hand side. Let's say we want to go ahead and automate our lead follow-up best practices. So every time someone gets a lead, they're able to complete the workflow and know exactly the steps that should be taken to reach out or connect with that particular lead. So we'll go ahead and click on to add. It's going to switch us over to our automation section, and we have our triggers. So the triggers is, of course, the action that's being taken or that will be fulfilled in order for the associates to be able to see the steps of what's going to happen within a workflow. So again, every time a new lead comes in, we want them to be able to complete the steps of the workflow. So we click the drop-down menu. Let's say we're going to choose our new lead received. We'll select next or workflow over on the left-hand side, and we can choose our lead follow-up for best practice. That's, of course, our workflow that's attached to our leads. When we say next, we'll have the ability to go ahead and attach it to our associates. I'm not going to select all because, of course, not all leads are going to be for, say, an administrator with a Fran Super role. So let's just choose the broker of record and a sales rep for right now. And then we can also go ahead and click on to next. You'll see that broker record sales rep is selected, and we click on to save. That automation's now automatically attached to our new leads. Of course, we can turn it off, edit it, and delete it, but the way it sits right now will automatically have that trigger or that notification sent for any type of lead follow-up. So I'm just going to switch over now, and then if you wanted to, I'm not sure if you wanted to mention anything else here. I'm just going to switch over views to an associate view, so now we can see what they're going to see on their side when they first sign into the Resource Center.
Sure. You know, that's game changer, Derek, because now agents are no longer hidden. If they get stuck on a particular step, a franchisee, an admin can really see the full picture and then be able to really help that agent be successful. It's phenomenal. I'm so excited for this.
Absolutely. So I quickly switch back over to an agent view here. I'm signed in as one of our associates, and you'll see here as I scroll down over on the right-hand side, we have our action items. So this is where, of course, those notifications are going to be sent or visible for any associates to sign in. So they can go ahead and, again, select complete, snooze, or skip right from this actual screen, the home page of the Resource Center. But of course, up in the top right-hand corner, they can click into workflows. And because we've gone ahead as the franchisee or the office manager, we've gone ahead and assigned that workflow. When they sign in on their active tab, they're automatically going to have access to that workflow that we attach to them. Alrighty, so again, they'll be able to see all the different steps that they're able to complete. Again, by clicking on to complete or snooze and skip, the steps would automatically be populated, and the progress bar is going to populate as well across the top. Once all the steps have been successfully completed, of course, they'll appear, the workflow itself will appear underneath the recently completed tab at the top, or the agent can choose to go ahead and archive it on their own. So maybe they've decided that they've completed a few steps. This is not the workflow that they thought they wanted to tackle at this particular moment. So they're going to go ahead and archive it, and it's no longer, of course, going to appear on the active tab. So that's the associate view. Now, one of the other things that we have with our workflows is, of course, our property workflows. Part of this is going to be steps that are available for both the sales associate as well as the office administrator. So I'm going to sign back out here as the associate, and we're going to sign in as a franchisee. Let's make sure my caps is not on.
You're doing great, Derek.
Thanks. So when we sign in as the franchisee and we click back into our workflow icon up at the top, I'm going to click into our library. And let's say we are coming down to our checklist, our property checklist. So you'll notice that with our property checklist, whether it's a pending deal checklist, closed deal, we even have one for a new listing checklist. These are set up as managed rather than assigned. So we have the ability to go ahead and give associates access to these property workflows as well. So let's say, for example, our new listing checklist. We could go ahead and grant access to all of our sales associates. So again, our associate brokers, our sales reps, and our broker of record. Make sure we choose our office, and we'll say give access. So now when one of the associates signs into the resource center and opens up their property, they can actually attach that workflow to their own listing as well. So if I switch back to our properties icon here at the top, let's go ahead and we'll pick one of Angela's listings here. Once we open up the listing, up at the top right-hand corner, we have this workflow icon. And of course, we have our active tab and available tab. From the drop-down menu, I can choose that new listing checklist that I just assigned or granted for our associates. And if Angela would like to go ahead and attach it to her property, she can go ahead and select apply this workflow. And back underneath our active tab, we have all the different steps that are attached to that new listing workflow. So again, we can go ahead and we can complete some steps, and we'll notice that the progress bar is going to go ahead and be populated across the top. But one of the great features with our property workflows is that if we're dealing with a team, Angela can actually assign one of the steps to another team member. So in this situation, let's say we wanted to go ahead and update the listing board. I know some of these steps could be done by the office management team or the associates themselves, just depending on how you handle things within your brokerage. But with this example, we're going to say this is something that the associates are responsible for. Angela is our team lead, and she wants to go ahead and assign this step to one of the other team members. She may click onto the Assign tab over on the right-hand side here. In the drop-down menu, we can choose either role or associate again. And as long as the team is actually created in Memo, and for anyone who doesn't know what Memo is, it's our online software production program. So as long as the team is set up in Memo and all those team members are affiliated or attached to that team, Angela's able to go ahead and assign a step, let's say in this case to Jim, and we can assign it. And now when Jim signs into the resource center, Jim is going to receive notification that he has a step that he has to complete for that listing workflow. You'll also notice that it's been assigned to Jim. You'll notice that as I hold my cursor over the picture there on the left, Jim's name appears. Now, as a franchisee or someone with a management role, if I were to sign back in underneath the management dashboard, I would see that one step has been actually assigned to Jim. So now as a management role, I know to expect that role or that step, excuse me, to be fulfilled by Jim rather than Angela. So if there's something that's not completed on that workflow, as a franchisee or the broker, I can reach out to the appropriate associate and find out what's happening with that particular step. So definitely one of my favorite parts when it comes to our property workflows for sure. We'll click back into our workflow icon up in the top here. And again, I'm still signed in as a franchisee, so I happen to have dual roles here right now. But you'll notice when the franchisee or anyone with management access happens to sign back into the resource center, we now have that new listing checklist. So as management roles go, they'll have access to all the different workflows. Again, they can see the various steps that have been completed, who needs to complete it, what hasn't been completed, whereas the associates, of course, are only going to see their own workflows on that active tab. But again, not until the office has opted everyone in.
So good. You know, there's no surprise. Agents don't have to wait to be told in an email, a text message, a pass by in the office. It's all here in one place. And of course, as the owners are using this and their best practices evolve, they can make these workflows better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone is truly going to enjoy them for sure.
So good. So let's continue. Derek, go ahead and hand me back the controls. All right. Share my screen. You let me know if you can see my screen okay. We did the live drive. That was awesome. So then what are the next steps, right? Now that you've seen it, you know, it's really time to discuss what is the next for our audience. Well, first, we want you to get access to the workflows. We want you to click on the workflow icon and request access. Of course, that's for management. And then for our associates, watch for the notifications and dive in to your action items. You know, for our franchisees and management, now's the time to start gathering your processes. Make them better, create a workflow, and then assign it. You know, you can see, as Derek demonstrated, where your associates get stuck, and you can mentor them in real time. That personally is one of my favorite things, because so often, Derek, whether you, like, we have offices with big offices, and could agents sometimes get lost? Possibly, you know, but this really helps our management team really notice where agents are struggling and be able to swoop in and help and mentor, which is really an instrumental way to help all of our agents be successful. And then also we encourage that all of our franchisees reach out to franchise support for assistance and training. You can also email techideas@exitrealty.com for suggestions. You know, workflows were made possible through the suggestions of our Exit Realty Nation, and we listen. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. We have so much more to evolve into as we continue to use workflows. So let us know, you know, what you'd like to see. Now, many have asked me personally, you know, what's the difference between Exit's workflows and other workflow platforms like Asana or Trello? Well, our platform is integrated with our data, right? Our associate roster, triggers, right? Such as new hires, new listings, listings sold, leads generated, agent development, and associate notification. Now, are we suggesting that managers stop using those type of platforms and use our exit workflows instead? The answer is no. Like, whatever you're using that is helping you be successful, keep doing that. But we do recommend that you try our exit workflows, which are integrated with our tools and our data. And by the way, it's also included as a member benefit. You see, for us, our goal for our offices is standardization, so that all agents are doing that exceptional level of service every time. And then automation, so you're not having to do duplicate things over and over again. And then consistency, where you have true service that is being provided by exit agents that's truly consistent how you prefer to run your office. And then oversight, you need to know what your agents are doing so that more real estate agents have a chance at being a success in this business. Now, huge thank you to our development team, our broker owners who tested and provided us feedback, and the many hands at Exit Realty Corp International. We're so proud of this product. You know, thank you so much to our attendees, and you, Derek, thank you so much for being with us today. Really do appreciate you.
Oh, anytime. Thanks for having me.
Yes. You know, for our attendees, we want to make sure that you stay connected with us. Go to @Exit Realty Corp International to connect with us everywhere on social. And then, of course, you can also go to joinexitrealty.com to learn more about us if you're new to Exit Realty. And also Real Estate Industry Leaders. That's our corporate blog. And we've got so much happening across North America with our Exit associates. Be in the know with what we're doing. And then join us here every fourth Wednesday of the month at noon Eastern Standard Time for our Techinars, which is a webinar focused on technology. We sure appreciate every one of you attending, both those new and those that are repeating back with us. I hope you have an exceptional rest of your productive day. Take care, everyone. Thanks, Derek.
Take care. Bye.